a very warm welcome to Fishing Tale Films and to another episode 4 of Reeling Back the Years. Now, as you can see by the thumbnail and obviously the title of this video, it's got a bit of a spooky story, a true story as well. Now, on my last video, Mark Ward, hi Mark, he said, have you got any ghost stories to tell? They're always good ones. He said, and if you haven't, make one up. They all do it. Well, it made me chuckle that, but actually I have a true story to tell of a fishing session that I had when I was tench fishing back in the very early 1980s. But before I mention that, I thought I'd just like to thank everyone for all the fantastic comments on this series. It looks like quite a few of you do enjoy the series, so that's good, sort of chatting about the old times of angling, a bit of old school, and many thanks to everybody for sharing their memories as well. It's great to read them all and keep them coming. Anyway, so back to the 1980s, and I used to fish a wonderful lake, a very mature lake. It's probably, I reckon, sort of 5, maybe 6 acres in size, and it was full of like nooks and crannies, lots of reed margins everywhere. It was very weedy, so that made the water sort of gin clear. You know, it was almost like a gravel pit type of scenario on a smaller scale. There was trees everywhere, and like I say, nooks and crannies, and some beautiful swims. And it was full of sort of 2 of my favourite fish, being the tench and the crucian. And there was obviously roach in there. There was some good rudd. Perch-wise, there was lots of small perch. I never really had any big perch out of there. And then there was just the odd carp, the odd decent carp in there, every now and then would crash out of the water. It wasn't a big head of carp, but there was an ample supply of tench and some lovely crucian carp fishing. And I must admit, that's what drew me to fishing this water. It was under the Tunnel Angling Club banner at the time, and this lake is in Essex. It's now called Kenningtons. Well, it was called Kenningtons when it was a Tunnel Angling Club, but it's now called Kennington Country Park, and I believe it's still there. When I look on Google Map, I can see it's definitely that lake. It's down near the Romford Road area, and I used to fish it many times, have some really good sessions there, especially on the tench. And one particular day, I mean, because the water was very clear, it tended to fish a lot better during the night. Obviously the darker hours, if it was really overcast, like and heavily cloudy, it used to fish. But on bright days when the sun would come out, then it would just go stone dead, and the only way you could get any bites was to stick a couple of maggots on and cast your waggler out, and you'd catch quite a few small perch. That was the only sort of species that was willing to feed, and they were small. They were like sort of that size, just to amuse yourself really. But what I used to do, the daytime I used to just sort of really just concentrate mostly. The ice cream van's just coming past there. I used to just concentrate on sort of priming the swim for the evening session. And I used to, in them days, I would sit up and fish all the way through the night. And although I was night fishing using float tactics. I used to love fishing the float, still do. And it was a great way of fishing for the tench and of course the crucians. And one particular day, was in a swim, one of my favourite swims. I managed to get in there, and there was only like 2 or 3 other anglers on the lake. Never used to get heavily fished for some reason, and which was a shame because there was some really good fishing to be had. And I got there, I think it was on a Thursday, and I was going to do a 2-night session. And so I didn't take me bivvy. I thought it was still like late summer, so I thought I'd just fish under my umbrella, which I used to do. I'd have all my gear set around me and nice and comfortable, and just take the stove with me, of course, for make a nice cup of tea or coffee, and as you do. And in those days, I used to sometimes fish with the night lights that you can still get today, but these were like sort of built into the float. I think they were called beta light floats, I think they were. But on this particular occasion, I was using a big onion float, quite a long one, probably about sort of 10-11 inches, because I was going to be fishing really close in about 3-4 foot of water, and I set myself back a bit because it obviously being clear, and even now when you think about it, I had a big red torch that took the big square battery or the rectangular battery, and I would just place it. Used to have a couple of bait boxes to lift it a bit higher up from the ground, so that it would then sort of turn the torch on, and it would then shine on the tip of my float. And I was using corn, sweet corn, and ground bait wise, during the day I was sort of priming it with a bit of meaty mix ground bait. I don't know if you remember the good old days of meaty mix, because it used to fizz a lot and give off a really strong scent. And also I'd put a bit of catch ground bait mixed in it, because that had a lot of hemp as well, and tench like love the hemp, and that fizzes as well, so it was a great mix to use. Just a shame you can't get meaty mix anymore, because it was a great ground bait. I really got on well with it. And then I've just flick out a few grains of corn in the mix, and that was it. That was really the mix. So it was quite simple, and I would then fish a piece of corn on a size 14 hook, using like 5 pound straight through, and this onion float, big onion float, and fishing really almost under my nose, under the rod tip. Nice easy fishing, and it turned out to be one of the most incredible nights that I've ever had for the tench fishing. It was absolutely went ballistic. As soon as light faded, so we're probably looking at about sort of 7, half 7 at that sort of time of the year. The sun went down, and I had my first bite. The tip just lifted right out of the water, and then just sailed away. And I sort of lifted into it, and it tore off. I had a big bed of reeds to my right, and the sort of big overhanging tree to the left. It was a real perfect tench swim. It was fantastic, and because there was pockets of weed as well, and the fish are going to be sitting underneath that. It's a natural sort of hiding place for them. And then I was basically just ambushing them with me bait right in front of them. And the first tench was about 4 pounds, which in them days was a quality fish. I mean, if you caught a tench £6, I suppose that's equivalent to like a 9 pounder now, you know. And anyway, the fish just kept coming. I did lose probably 4 or 5 good fish. The moon was out. It was quite a light night, and every now and then they'd like just tear off, and you could see the reeds part as they were like, you're trying to sort of hold back on them. But some of them I just couldn't stop. They were probably the better stamped tench. But I ended up with 22 tench that night. It was an incredible night. I think the smallest, because I always used to weigh my fish so I could return them. And so I had my pen and pad paper ready, and I was writing them all down, weighing them, slipping them back. And the smallest fish I was £3 9 ounces, and the biggest was just over 5. I had about probably half a dozen fish over the £5 mark, and the majority of them were big 4s. You know, it was an incredible night's fishing, absolutely fantastic, and it was so good that I thought, well, how am I going to better that? So I packed up in the morning when it got light. As soon as it was getting light, probably about sort of 5 in the morning, then the bites dried up and they just disappeared. And that's how it went. It was as soon as the light come up, they'd just vanish. It was almost like there was not any fish there at all. It's incredible. They probably just moved straight out into the middle and just stayed put. And then they'd come in the margins looking for food during the night hours. And so that was that. I thought, well, I'm not going to better that. It would have been a case of just hanging around all day to then wait for the following evening session. I thought, well, I've had a good session. Don't want to be greedy. I'll come back again another time soon. Well, that's what I did. About 3 or 4 days later, the following week, the temperatures had cooled down a wee bit. So we're looking at sort of, it was like late autumn time. And I arrived on a Thursday again and decided to go in the same swim. Why not? It was available. Well, I'd say one of my favourite swims. And I set up exactly, I thought I was just going to do the one-nighter this time, and I'd set up everything the same. New battery for the torch, because it took an hammer in that following night when you think it was on virtually all night. And so night came, it was a bit, like I say, a bit chilly. The moon was out, it was quite a clear night. And I sat there, and it was a bit slower, as I guess you would imagine, because the temperatures had dropped a wee bit, quite a bit, even though it was only 3 or 4 days later, or about a week later, I guess. And so I'd had about 2 or 3 tench, and I was picking one up every hour. A good fish around the 4. Just under the £5 mark, so I couldn't complain with that. It was great sport. And I suppose I'd had about 8 or 9 fish by about 11 o'clock. And then it went quiet for about an hour or so. And then the next 2 hours it was manic, up till about 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, I was the only angler on the lake, which surprised me, where the week before there was like about 3 or 4. And so I'm fishing away, and I just made myself a cup of tea, sitting there sipping that, and I had another bite around about 2:30, which turned out to be another tench. That went in the landing net, that weighed, I think it was about £4 plus, and I put that back and just settled down in the chair, just sitting there and thinking about other plans for another night. As I say, it was a clear night, and I'm just sitting there waiting, and then all of a sudden I was aware of some movement behind me, and I remember looking at me watch, and it was just before I heard these noises, and it was coming up to about 3 o'clock in the morning, and it felt like I could hear someone moving about, and I'm thinking, oh, it must be another angler's just turned up, getting there early to fish, a couple of hours into the morning. So I sort of turned round, and I could hear it getting loud, and the noise getting louder, like someone moving through, because there was like a pathway, and you had to sort of walk through trees, like bushes and undergrowth and that, and it was getting louder and louder, and I was thinking, oh, who the hell was this? I couldn't see no torch, so no one was shining a torch as they were walking. So I always carried a big meaty bank stick with me. I always had it down the side, because you never know, especially if you're on your own fishing. And so I stood up, turned round, so I'm facing where this noise is coming from. So it's so I've turned round, and the noise is coming round to the left. There's all trees, but there was a pathway that the anglers walked through, and it went off round to the right. And it was getting nearer and louder, and I'm thinking, that is someone walking through the undergrowth. I can hear them. And then, much to my amazement, and even now when I think back of it, I just cannot believe it. And a monk appeared. That's right, a monk. And he looked like the Grim Reaper. And I'm sort of like, I've got the bank stick there, I've got my torch in my left hand, and I'm thinking, what the hell is this all about? And I mean, the path was about 6 or 7 foot away from me, and he very slowly just walked along. Didn't sort of look at. He had his head bowed down with this great big hood on, and his cloak was like dragging along behind him. And he sort of got to sort of within 6 foot of me, and the only thing I could think of at the time to say, because I thought, I've got to say something, because what the hell's going on here? And I went, it's a bit of a chilly night tonight. Got absolutely no response at all, and he just carried on walking, and I just followed him with my eyes, of course, as you would imagine, because I'm just thinking, what is going on here? And to the right, about 20 yards to the right, there was like the path sort of went underneath some overhanging trees. It was almost formed like an archway. So I've watched him, and I'm sort of like looking like this now, thinking, what the hell? And then as soon as he went into the archway, the noise stopped. So I'm thinking, he's just gone out of view and he's stopped. Because to the right, because it was quite light, the other side of that archway was the continuation of the path, and if anyone would walk through, you could see them carrying on walking up the lake. So I've got one eye, so I'm looking to where I last seen him, and I'm expecting to see him carry on walking up the path. And he didn't appear, but the noise stopped as soon as he went out of my view. So I'm thinking, whoever it is has stopped in that archway, just standing there. I'm convinced of it. So I gave it a couple of minutes. I'm just standing there thinking, my heart's banging. I'm thinking, this is a bit weird. This is what on earth's this all about? A monk just walking through in is it a habit they wear? I don't know, but it's big cloak, look like the Grim Reaper. Is it someone messing about? I don't know. So anyway, I've got my torch and I've got the bank stick with me, and I started walking down the path towards the archway, because it's only like 20-25 yards from where I'm fishing. And I thought, I'm not going to start fishing, turn me back up underneath the umbrella if someone's lurking around, you know. I need to see who this is. Like I say, there's no one else on the lake, so I'm there on my own. I've got to make sure what's going on. So I followed down the path slowly, and I'm shining the torch. Now on the left it's all high bank and all foliage, so there's no way that someone could walk up to that archway and then climb up. There's no other way, no other exit, unless you walk all the way around the lake and come back the other side and then go out through the main gate. Well, it's a car park, a locked car park. And as I've gone up to the arch, I'm shining the torch around and I can't see anything. Can't see anything at all. There's no like hideouts at all, and I'm shining it through the trees to see if anyone's, you know, if he's like lurking in there and sitting there. Nothing. And I carried on walking, and I've gone through the other side of the archway, and I'm looking behind me and everything and shining it around. It's all high bank to the left, and shining down the path in front of me. Nothing at all. It's just completely vanished. And so I'm sitting there, I'm just trying to take all this in, 3 o'clock in the morning, some monk has come walking through. He's not responded to anything as I've spoken to him. He's not responded, and then just disappeared. Out when he went out of sight, the sound stopped, the noise of his cloak dragging across the floor and brushing through all the undergrowth. So what the hell was that? What was that all about? How can someone just vanish like that if they're not some sort of a ghost? Now, I'm not saying I believe in ghosts, but that night, and I think about that night quite a lot, that night was something weird. It couldn't have been anyone messing about. And anyway, when the first light came, I packed up and come home. I was just trying to, as I'm driving back home, because I was living in Plaistow, where I lived at the time, where I was born actually, and going back just thinking about trying to take it all in, what the hell. And I'd just seen that night. The fishing went out the window after that. I must admit I couldn't actually concentrate because I was just gobsmacked with what I'd seen. And I went back to Kenningtons a couple of weeks later, and over time, you know, when you're fishing, you see regulars fishing, and there was a chap called Albert, his name was. Anyway, I explained to him what I'd seen, and he said to me, "I've not seen it." He said, "But I know someone who has." And that freaked me out even more. And I said, "What do you mean, you know someone?" He said, "Yeah, someone said to me the other couple of years ago that they'd seen like a monk walking through on the lake while they were fishing one night." Oh, so there you go. But I still fished Kenningtons, and I never saw the monk again. Not that I wanted to. But there you go. What do you think? Do you think that was a ghost I saw? Because I really can't explain what it could have been other than that. Very strange night, and a night I will never forget. If you've had any similar, you know, sort of sightings of that while you've been out and about, not necessarily just fishing, drop me a line underneath this video, because I'd be fascinated to know. Well, there you go. Well, I hope I haven't spooked you out too much on episode 4 of Reeling in the Years, and I'll be back again sometime very soon. I've got some fishing to be getting on with, and there's a bit of tench fishing now that springs have arrived. But I will continue with the series because it seems like, you know, quite a few of you enjoy the old chats about fishing. Someone, I think it was a chap called Phil, said I should write a book on my experiences. Well, I said to him that I've always wanted to write a book about my early fishing days, and when I retire, which hopefully won't be too long in the near future, maybe I'll sit down and write that book that I've always wanted to, because like I say, I've got lots of fishing memories, and I shall share a lot more with them on this series of Reeling in the Years. If you've liked the video, please give it a like. If you haven't subscribed, please do, because it always helps the channel, and I'll be very appreciative of that. You look after yourself. Good luck with your next fishing adventures, and hopefully you won't see any spooky sightings that I did that night way back in the 1980s. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.